The dawn breaks over a world of stone and flame. Imagine it. A valley cradled by mountains, their peaks jagged like the teeth of giants. Mists curl in the cool air, rising from the earth like the spirits of ancestors, drifting between pyramids that pierce the sky. In the heart of this place, Teotihuacan, the city of the gods, men and women move like shadows, carrying baskets of obsidian, cacao, and maize. The air smells of wet earth, sweat, and something sharp. Incense, burning low on the altars. This is where the legend begins. Not in the high heavens, nor in some distant, forgotten land, but here, among the people who watched the sun rise and wondered what it meant, who tilled the soil and built great temples from stone, who feared the darkness and sought to bargain with it through offerings of blood. They tell of Quetzalcoatl, the Feathered Serpent, a being of contradictions. His name itself is a paradox. The Quetzal, a bird of brilliant feathers, and the Coatl, a snake that slithers and strikes. He is both the sky and the earth, the dream and the fang, the bringer of wisdom and the whisper of destruction. Some say he was a god, others a man, a king, a priest, a prophet, or perhaps all of these woven into one. But what does it mean to become a god, and what is left when a god falls? This is the story of Quetzalcoatl, not as myth, but as a man, walking the line between faith and fate, light and shadow. Let's step into the dust of ancient Mexico and see the world through his eyes. If you enjoy this journey, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments. What does legacy mean to you? Let's begin. The wind is sharp today, curling over the high plateaus, lifting dust and the scent of burning wood. You can hear the low murmur of prayers in the temple courtyards, mingled with the distant calls of market traders and the rhythmic beating of drums. The city is alive, stone and breath and heartbeat. In the great ceremonial heart of Teotihuacan, beneath towering pyramids that claw at the sky, a man walks with the weight of prophecy on his shoulders. His skin is bronzed by the sun, his face lined by the years. His eyes, dark and deep, are filled with questions. Not just for the gods, but for himself. His name, they say, is Che-Acatl Topiltzin, a priest, a ruler, a man born to the lineage of gods. He moves with purpose, but his steps are heavy. The air smells of copal, sweet and smoky. It clings to his skin, mixing with the faint trace of blood. In the temples, offerings lie upon the altars, flowers, jade, feathers, and hearts still warm from the sacrifice. There is power here, yes, but also an unease, like the gods themselves are watching, waiting, and perhaps hungering for more. Teotihuacan was not born into a simple world. The land was one of contradictions, lush and fertile yet unforgiving. The rains could bless or drown, the earth could yield maize or swallow it whole. Life was a delicate bargain, and the gods were its brokers. He grew up in a world where the serpent was not just a symbol, but a force, slithering through myths, coiling in stone carvings, whispering in dreams. The Quetzal bird, with its vibrant green plumage, soared above, a promise of beauty, of divine favor. Together they formed the name Quetzalcoatl, feather and fang, beauty and danger intertwined. As a child, he had watched the priests offer sacrifices atop the Great Pyramid, the blood flowing in rivers down the steps. He had felt the crowd's fear, the weight of belief heavy in the air. But in his heart, a question stirred, quiet and persistent. Must the gods always be fed with blood? Teotihuacan rose through the ranks, not through brute force, but through vision. He spoke of balance, of a world where offerings could be made in flowers, in song, in breath, not just in the sharp cut of a blade. Some called him a heretic, others a savior. He walked the thin line between reverence and rebellion. His hands built temples, but his voice spoke of a different kind of offering, one of knowledge, of art, of peace. But peace in a world ruled by obsidian knives was a fragile dream. He gazed at the horizon where the mountains met the sky, and in the quiet moments before sleep, he wondered, Could a man change the will of the gods? Or was he merely a vessel for their hunger? The stars above flickered like distant fires, and in their light, Quetzalcoatl felt the weight of destiny pressing down. The feathered serpent was rising, and so too, perhaps, was the storm. The first rays of dawn spill over the valley, casting a warm golden glow on the stones of Teotihuacan. It is a city built not merely of walls and temples, but of dreams, ambitions carved into obsidian and limestone, echoing through centuries. You walk its streets, feeling the rhythm beneath your feet, the pulse of 1,000 lives woven together. The sun catches the edges of carved serpents, their jaws agape, their eyes unblinking. They watch in silence as the city stirs awake. The smell of roasted maize drifts from the market, mingling with the sharp tang of wet clay and the faint scent of burning incense. Vendors call out in lilting voices, offering woven fabrics, beads of jade, and feathers that shimmer like droplets of emerald rain. Laughter rises in bursts, children chasing each other between the stalls. And above it all, the pyramids rise like ancient mountains, their steps worn smooth by the passing of feet. Priests, nobles, commoners, all climbing toward the gods. This is the world of Quetzalcoatl, a world where every stone has been touched by human hands, where every breath is a quiet bargain with forces unseen. A world that believes the sun itself must be fed with blood, or risk plunging into darkness forever. Quetzalcoatl walks through this city, a man both part of it and apart from it. His robes brush against the dust of the avenue, his feet leaving faint imprints that fade in the morning light. Around him, the people bow slightly, eyes averted. They know who he is, Tepiltzin, the chosen one, the voice of the gods. Or so they say. But inside, the man is restless. He sees the grandeur of the city, the wealth that flows through its veins. But he also sees the cracks, the hunger that gnaws beneath the surface, the priests who whisper in dark corners, their eyes gleaming with greed, the sacrifices that never seem to satisfy the gods. At the base of the Pyramid of the Sun, he pauses. The steps stretch before him, steep and unyielding. He has climbed them before, felt the heat of the sun on his back, the weight of expectation in every step. He closes his eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the city wash over him. The distant cry of a jaguar, the sharp crack of a drum, the soft weeping of a mother cradling her child. It is all so fragile, so temporary. He remembers stories told to him as a boy, of the gods who shaped the world from the bones of giants, of the sun that was born from sacrifice, of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, who brought maize to humankind, who taught them to write, to heal, to dream. But he wonders, what if the gods are not pleased? What if the sun falters and the darkness returns? He has seen the signs, the strange stars that appear in the sky, the rumors of droughts in distant villages, the growing unease in the hearts of the people. And he feels it too, deep in his bones, that this city, for all its splendor, stands on the edge of something vast and unknowable. The priests gather in the temple chambers, their voices low, their hands stained with blood. They speak of omens, of prophecies, of the need for more sacrifices. Teotihuacan listens, but his thoughts drift elsewhere. To the wind that stirs the banners above the pyramids, to the children playing in the market, their laughter sharp as obsidian, to the faces of those who come to him seeking guidance, hope flickering in their eyes like fragile flames. He wants to believe that another way is possible, that the gods could be honored without rivers of blood, that the sun might rise not from death, but from joy, from creation, from love. But the weight of tradition is heavy, and even the feathered serpent, with all its beauty, has fangs. He stands at the top of the pyramid, looking down at the city, at the rivers, the fields, the endless sky. His heart beats in his chest, slow and steady, like a drum calling out into the silence. He knows the city is watching him, waiting, and so is something else, lurking just beyond the horizon. The gods, perhaps. Or fate itself. The wind rises again, carrying with it the scent of copal and earth. The banners snap in the breeze, and the sun climbs higher, bathing the city in light that feels both warm and sharp, like a blade. Quetzalcoatl breathes deeply, letting it fill his lungs. He is Quetzalcoatl, the Feathered Serpent, and his journey has only just begun. The nights in Teotihuacan are alive with whispers. The wind carries them down the narrow streets, through the archways of temples, and across the open plazas where fires burn low. They drift like smoke, curling around the minds of men and women, slipping into their dreams. You feel it too, don't you? The weight in the air, the sense that something is shifting, that the world is holding its breath. Quetzalcoatl lies awake beneath a blanket of woven reeds, staring at the flickering shadows cast by the fire. The flames dance on the walls, tracing shapes he knows too well. Serpents, birds, jaguars, gods. They seem to move, to breathe, to watch. He closes his eyes, but the whispers follow him into sleep. They speak in fragments, of droughts in distant lands, of rivers turning dry, of a hunger in the earth that cannot be sated, of men sharpening obsidian blades beneath the moonlight, their hands steady, their hearts hard. In his dreams, the wind carries him to places he has never seen. Vast deserts, where bones lie half-buried in sand. Thick jungles, where vines coil like serpents and the air smells of rain and decay. Mountains crowned with ice, glinting coldly beneath a sky of endless stars. He sees faces, some familiar, some strange. A mother holding her child, eyes wide with fear. A warrior, his face streaked with paint, raising a spear high above his head. A priest, his robe stained with blood, chanting words older than memory. And then, always, the serpent, feathers gleaming in the light, eyes like dark jewels, mouth open in a silent cry. When Quetzalcoatl wakes, the sky is pale with dawn, and the air is thick with the scent of earth after rain. The city hums softly, as if the stones themselves remember what he dreamed. He rises, dressing in simple robes, the fabric rough against his skin. His attendants wait in silence, their eyes lowered, their hands folded neatly. They do not speak, but he feels their questions, their quiet expectations. He walks through the temple complex, past carvings that speak of creation and destruction, of gods who tore themselves apart to give birth to the world. The stones are cool beneath his bare feet. The air is heavy with the scent of copal. At the far end of the courtyard, an elder waits for him. Eyes sunken, lips thin, hands folded over a staff carved with intricate patterns. His name is Mixcoatl, a man who has served as a priest for longer than most have lived. His voice is low, steady, like the drip of water from a cave ceiling. The winds carry warnings, Topiltzin, he says without preamble. The omens grow darker, the drought deepens, the people are restless. Quetzalcoatl nods, though his chest tightens. He has heard the same words 100 times. They settle over him like a net, threads tightening with each repetition. But Iztak's gaze sharpens, like the glint of obsidian under sunlight. They say you speak of change, that you would offer flowers instead of blood, that you would challenge the order the gods demand. Quetzalcoatl feels the weight of those words. They echo against the walls, against the sky. He looks out over the city, the rooftops glowing in the rising light, the smoke curling from cooking fires, the distant cries of children playing in the streets. I speak of a different path, he says quietly, one where the gods are honored through song and learning, where we give thanks with art, not with death. The elder's expression does not change, but a flicker passes through his eyes. Doubt, or perhaps warning. Be careful, Topiltzin, Iztak says, voice barely a whisper. The gods are hungry, and so are men. The wind stirs the banners overhead, tugging at them like invisible hands. It carries the scent of the river, the faint sweetness of blooming cacao, the acrid tang of smoldering incense. And something else, something sharp, like the smell of a coming storm. As Quetzalcoatl walks away, the whispers follow him, clinging to the edges of his thoughts. He feels them curling around him, slipping through the cracks of his resolve. Change is a dangerous thing, after all, and in a world where the gods demand blood, a man who speaks of peace becomes a target for the blade. The wind grows stronger, lifting dust from the stones. Somewhere in the distance, a drum begins to beat, a slow, steady rhythm, like a heart preparing for war. The feathered serpent stirs, and the storm is not far behind. The drums beat louder now. Their sound rolls over the city like thunder, low and relentless. Each strike echoes off the stone, reverberating through the bodies of the people, as if the earth itself is keeping time with the rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. The air is thick with the scent of sweat and burning incense. The sun hangs heavy in the sky, a molten disk casting long shadows across the plaza. The people gather, eyes wide, breaths shallow, their faces turned toward the towering pyramid. They know what is coming. So does Quetzalcoatl. He stands at the edge of the great temple, the smooth stone cool beneath his bare feet. The wind stirs his robes, fluttering them like the wings of some great bird. He looks out over the sea of faces, mothers clutching their children, elders leaning on carved staffs, warriors standing with arms crossed, their obsidian blades glinting in the light. And he feels the weight of it all. This is not just a ritual. It is a transaction, a debt paid in blood, a promise renewed. Without it, they believe, the sun might falter in the sky, the rains might stop, the crops wither. Life itself hangs in the balance. The priests begin their chants, low, rhythmic, rising and falling like the tide. Their voices weave together, ancient words spoken in the tongue of the gods. The crowd joins in, a hum building beneath the surface, a rising wave of belief and fear. Quetzalcoatl closes his eyes, the sound washing over him, through him. He feels his own heartbeat, steady but insistent, as if it too is caught in the rhythm. Then the victim is brought forward, a young man, barely more than a boy. His skin gleams with sweat, his hands tremble, but his eyes are defiant, wide and dark, staring straight ahead. His breath comes in shallow gasps, chest rising and falling like a bird trapped in a cage. Quetzalcoatl's gaze locks with his. For a moment, the noise of the crowd fades, the heat of the sun disappears, and there is only this, two human beings standing at the edge of something terrible and sacred. The priest raises the obsidian blade, its edge sharp enough to cut a thought in half. Quetzalcoatl's breath catches, his mind screams, no, not like this. But the blade falls. The boy's body arches, his mouth opens in a silent cry, and the blood flows, hot, dark, and final. It spills down the steps, steaming in the sun. The crowd roars, voices raw with fear and relief, their faith fed for another day. Quetzalcoatl stands frozen, the scene burning into his eyes, into his soul. He tastes iron on his tongue, feels the tremor in his hands. This is the way it has always been, they tell him. The way it must be. But inside, something shifts. A crack forms in the foundation of his belief, a fracture that runs deep and quiet, like a fault line beneath the earth. Later, in the stillness of the night, he sits alone, the stars cold and distant above him. The chants have faded, the fires burned low, but the image remains. The boy's face, the blade, the blood. He thinks of the gods, of the stories passed down through generations. The feathered serpent, who brought knowledge, who taught the people to sow the fields and carve the stones. The bringer of wisdom, not war. He wonders, is this truly what they demand? The wind stirs the trees, whispering through the leaves, carrying voices from the past, or perhaps the future. He listens, But the answers are as elusive as smoke. He knows the others watch him, priests, nobles, warriors. They watch for signs of weakness, of heresy. To question the sacrifice is to question the gods themselves. But the seed of doubt has taken root, and as the night deepens, a quiet resolve grows in his chest. He cannot turn away from the blood. He cannot pretend not to see. Yet he must find another path, before the city drowns in rivers of sacrifice, before the drums consume the hearts of men. The stars wheel slowly overhead, silent and eternal. And beneath their cold gaze, the feathered serpent lies awake, dreaming of a world remade. The night sky stretches endless above the Valley of the Gods, a blanket of obsidian pierced by stars that glimmer like cold, watchful eyes. The fires in the city below burn low, their glow flickering across the temples and plazas, casting long shadows that sway with the breeze. Somewhere in the darkness, a coyote howls, its voice sharp and solitary, a thin thread of sound unraveling into the quiet. And in the heart of the city, in a chamber lit by the soft glow of embers, Quetzalcoatl sits alone. The walls around him are carved with stories, gods birthing the world from their own bones, the sun rising in triumph after the sacrifice, jaguars leaping through fire. They seem to shimmer in the half-light, their shapes shifting, moving, as if the stones themselves breathe. The air smells of charred wood and melted copal. His hands rest on his knees, fingers curled into the fabric of his robe. His breath is slow, steady, but his mind churns beneath the surface. An ocean of thought, restless and deep. He hears the echo of drums in his chest, even though the plaza outside is silent now. The memory of the boy's sacrifice lingers, etched into the very marrow of his bones. The blood, the cries, the roar of the crowd, all of it feels like a weight pressing down on his chest, a burden he cannot shake. He remembers the boy's eyes, wide, dark, and unyielding. There was no fear in them, only a terrible, shining defiance. As if the boy had known that in his death, something else had been born, a question perhaps, or a wound. Quetzalcoatl cannot escape the thought, is this what the gods desire? He thinks of the stories he was told as a child, how Quetzalcoatl created humankind by descending into the underworld, stealing the bones of the ancestors and breathing life into them. How he gave the gift of maize, of knowledge, of civilization itself. A bringer of life, not death. A teacher, not a butcher. And yet here, in the city that bears the imprint of gods, the blood flows day after day. It darkens the stones, stains the hands of the priests, fills the mouths of the hungry earth. He feels the fire within him, burning low but fierce. A quiet anger, not yet rage, but a flame that flickers with each breath. He wants to believe in the gods, to honor them, to serve the people. But he cannot shake the thought, what if we have misunderstood? What if the gods do not demand blood, but something else, something harder, something gentler, something truer? The wind rises outside, rattling the banners on the temple walls. It sighs through the stone corridors, a sound like whispered voices, old and knowing. He listens, wondering if the gods are speaking through the wind, or if it is only the echo of his own doubts. There is a quiet knock at the door. He lifts his head, surprised. It is late, the hour when even the priests retreat to their chambers. The fire crackles softly, casting sparks into the air. The door opens slowly, and a figure steps inside. A woman, her face partially shadowed, her robes the deep red of sunset. She bows her head, a small, graceful motion. Forgive the intrusion, Topiltzin. Her voice is soft, but steady, like water flowing over stones. He recognizes her. Xochitl, one of the temple scribes. A woman known for her quiet mind and quick eyes. Quetzalcoatl gestures for her to sit. She does, folding her legs beneath her, her hands resting lightly on her lap. The firelight catches in her dark hair, glinting like obsidian shards. For a long moment, they sit in silence, the air thick with the scent of smoke and the weight of unspoken thoughts. Finally, Xochitl speaks. There is talk among the priests. They say you question the old ways. Her words are careful, but there is no accusation in them. Only curiosity, perhaps a hint of concern. Quetzalcoatl does not answer immediately. He stares into the fire, watching the flames curl and twist, each ember a tiny dying star. Yes, he says at last, his voice low. I question. I wonder if the gods we worship are the same as the gods we imagine. I wonder if we have shaped them in our own image, made them cruel because we are cruel, made them hungry because we are afraid. Xochitl's gaze does not waver. She leans forward slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. And what do you see when you look into the fire, Topiltzin? Do you see gods or men? The question hangs between them, fragile as a feather. He thinks of the boy, of the blood, of the endless cycle of sacrifice. He thinks of the stories, of Quetzalcoatl's gifts, of maize and art, of dreams woven into clay and song. I see both, he says quietly, and I wonder if we have been feeding the wrong hunger. The fire pops softly, a tiny spark leaping into the air and fading into the dark. Xochitl studies him for a long moment, then nods. Her eyes are thoughtful, her expression unreadable. There are others who whisper of change, she says. But change is a dangerous wind, Topiltzin. It can nourish, or it can destroy. He feels the truth of her words settle deep within him. Change is dangerous. It stirs the old stones, unsettles the foundations, awakens the sleeping serpents. But sometimes, it is the only way forward. Quetzalcoatl stands, his shadow long against the wall. The fire crackles softly, its warmth flickering across his skin. He looks down at Xochitl, who rises slowly, bowing her head. Thank you, he says simply. She departs, leaving him alone once more with the fire and the whispers of the night. The flames dance higher now, casting shapes that twist and coil, serpents rising, feathers falling. And within him, the fire grows, not of destruction, but of vision, of a world where the gods are honored not with blood, but with beauty, where the sun rises not because it is fed, but because it is loved. A dangerous dream, perhaps, but a dream worth holding. He breathes deeply, the air thick with smoke and possibility. The feathered serpent stirs within him, coiling, waiting, and in the quiet, he knows his path is set. Tomorrow the drums will beat again, the priests will chant, the people will watch, the blade will gleam. But Quetzalcoatl, he will carry a different fire, a fire that might yet burn the old ways to ash, or ignite a new dawn. The rains begin as a whisper, soft, tentative, barely brushing the thirsty earth. It falls in thin, delicate sheets, like the sigh of a sleeping god. But the air smells of change, of something gathering just beyond the horizon. The people tilt their faces upward, eyes closed, mouths slightly open, feeling the drops touch their skin like a benediction. For weeks, the sun has burned high and unrelenting, baking the stones of Teotihuacan until they shimmer in the heat. The fields crackled underfoot. The rivers dwindled to thin, sluggish veins. Crops withered, animals grew thin, and eyes turned toward the temples, pleading, demanding, hoping. And now, the rains come. But there is no joy in it. Not this time, because it is too much, too fast, too heavy. The skies open and the rain lashes down, drumming on rooftops, flooding the streets, turning the hard-packed earth into a slurry of mud. The rivers swell, breaking their banks, devouring the fields in great gulps of water. Grain stores rot in the flood, homes collapse under the weight, and the people wade through water up to their waists, clutching their children, their meager belongings, their hopes dissolving in the storm. Quetzalcoatl stands at the edge of the city, the rain soaking his robes, clinging to his skin, chilling him to the bone. The storm howls around him, the wind tearing at the banners above the pyramids, the rain stinging his face like needles. He watches the floodwaters rise, unstoppable, merciless. It feels like an omen, or perhaps a punishment. He hears the whispers again, low, urgent, twisting through the wind. The priests speak of angered gods, of sacrifices insufficient, of blood debts unpaid. They gather in the temples, their voices sharp, their eyes gleaming with a fevered light. The gods are angry, they say. We must give them more. The drums return, louder, faster, urgent as a heartbeat pressed to the blade's edge. And the people believe. They gather in the plazas, soaked to the skin, eyes wide with fear. Mothers hold their children tighter. Elders mutter prayers under their breath. The scent of wet earth mixes with the iron tang of blood, because the sacrifices have already begun. Quetzalcoatl feels the old anger stirring again. It coils in his chest, hot and heavy, as he watches the priests lead a young woman up the pyramid steps, barefoot, shivering, her long hair plastered to her skin by the rain. She stumbles, but they drag her forward, their hands gripping her arms like iron shackles. He sees the fear in her eyes, the tears mixing with the rain, the silent question, why me? And he knows there is no answer, because the flood does not care. The gods do not answer. The storm comes because the world is wild and vast and sometimes cruel. But the people, they believe. And that belief is a force as powerful as the rain itself. He steps forward, the water swirling around his ankles. His voice cuts through the storm, steady and clear, even as the wind tries to swallow it whole. Stop! The priests turn, their eyes flashing. The crowd falls silent, a collective breath held tight in their throats. Quetzalcoatl walks slowly, deliberately, each step a quiet rebellion. The rain drips from his hair, slides down his face, pools at the hem of his robe. Enough, he says again, his voice low but unshaken. The high priest, Quetzalcoatl, narrows his eyes. His face is lined like cracked stone, his lips thin and pale. You would deny the gods their due, Topiltzin. I would question what the gods truly ask of us, Quetzalcoatl replies, his gaze unwavering. Has the blood we've spilled stopped the storm? Has the fear in our hearts calmed the flood? Or does the rain fall regardless of our prayers and our blades? A ripple moves through the crowd, murmurs, a shifting of feet, a flicker of something uncertain. Quetzalcoatl's voice is sharp as obsidian. You would have us do nothing? Let the flood take what it will? I would have us build, not destroy, Quetzalcoatl says, his voice rising with the wind. I would have us learn from the waters, not drown beneath them. The rain does not come because we are weak. It comes because the earth lives, and life does not demand a blade. The silence that follows is thick as the storm clouds overhead. For a moment, Quetzalcoatl feels the weight of every eye upon him, the priests glaring, the people wide-eyed, the storm itself seeming to pause as if listening. Then a woman's voice, soft, trembling, breaks the stillness. My son was taken. Quetzalcoatl turns. The speaker is an old woman, her skin weathered, her hands shaking as she clutches a bundle of cloth to her chest. Her eyes glisten in the rain, but she does not lower them. They said the gods demanded him, she whispers, but the gods have not answered. The wind gusts, and the banner snaps sharply in the air. Quetzalcoatl feels the fire in his chest blaze higher, fanned by the storm, by the eyes that watch him, by the quiet desperation etched into the faces of the people. We will not give the gods our children, he says firmly, his voice cutting through the rain like a knife. We will build walls to hold back the water. We will share what food we have left. We will help one another, not feed each other to the storm. The priests stare at him, shock, then anger, then fear flickering across their faces. But the people, they shift, like leaves caught in the wind. Some nod, Hesitantly, some lower their heads, some weep silently, their tears lost in the rain. Quetzalcoatl turns and raises his face to the sky, the rain cold and relentless on his skin. He feels it, deep in his bones, that this is the moment the tide begins to turn. It will not be easy. The old ways have roots that run deep, tangled in blood and fear. The priests will not yield quietly, but the storm has stirred something in the hearts of the people. And sometimes, a flood does not just destroy, it reshapes the land. As the rain pounds down, Quetzalcoatl stands tall, drenched, defiant, alive. The feathered serpent coils within him, watching, waiting. And the storm, for all its fury, does not wash him away. It tempers him, like flame on metal. A man reborn, forged in water and will. The rains have passed, but the city is changed. Teotihuacan lies under a washed sky, pale and cloud-streaked, the air cool and heavy with damp earth. The floodwaters have receded, leaving behind their scars. Collapsed homes, fields turned to muck, the scent of rot rising from the soil. The riverbanks are ragged, the streets churned into furrows where the water carved its own paths. But the people, they are stirring. Men lift stones from the wreckage, hands raw and blistered. Women gather what grain they can salvage, shaking mud from the stalks. Children scrape mud from walls with flat stones, their bare feet sinking into the sludge. The city hums with the quiet, stubborn sounds of rebuilding, of something fragile being mended piece by piece. And yet, beneath it all, there is a tension, a crackling in the air, like dry leaves waiting for a spark. The priests watch from the temple steps, their faces tight, their eyes narrowed. They see the people turning not toward the altars, but toward one another, lifting, carrying, tending. They see Quetzalcoatl moving through the crowd, sleeves rolled, hands caked in earth, working alongside the common folk, his voice low and steady, offering comfort, offering guidance. And they fear it, for power once given is hard to reclaim. It is in the shadow of this fragile hope that the decree comes. The priests call the people to the plaza, their voices sharp as obsidian. The drums return, steady, unyielding, a heartbeat that thrums in the chest and fills the air with a subtle dread. The banners flap high above, their edges tattered by the storm, but still they wave. A reminder of the gods' gaze, or perhaps of the men who claim to speak for them. Quetzalcoatl stands in the crowd, the dampness of the earth seeping into his sandals. The faces around him are pale, hollow-eyed, their bodies thin from hunger, their spirits worn by fear. The high priest, Quetzalcoatl, steps forward, his robe stiff with intricate embroidery, the hem trailing like the tail of a snake. His voice carries across the square, cold and measured. "The gods have spoken," he declares. "The flood was a warning, a punishment for those who dare to question. The earth must be cleansed." A murmur runs through the crowd, fear, confusion, a rising hum of dread. Quetzalcoatl lifts his arms, his voice sharpening like the edge of a blade. Every field that has been touched by the unclean waters must be salted. Every grain must be burned. Every home where the waters rose must be torn down stone by stone. The gods demand it. The land must be purified. A gasp ripples through the people, a collective intake of breath, sharp and involuntary, like the sting of a wound. Salt the earth, burn the grain, tear down the homes. It is a death sentence. Quetzalcoatl feels the words strike him like a blow. He steps forward, his voice cutting through the rising murmur. No. It is a single word, small and fragile, yet it echoes like a bell in the stunned silence. All eyes turn to him. The crowd holds its breath. Quetzalcoatl's gaze sharpens, narrowing to cold slits. "You would defy the will of the gods, Topiltzin? I would defy the will of men who twist the gods into weapons." Quetzalcoatl says, his voice steady but low, measured, like a storm gathering beneath calm skies. The flood was not a punishment. It was the earth breathing. It was life renewing itself. He turns, sweeping his gaze across the faces in the crowd, faces lined with dirt, with grief, with exhaustion. Have we not suffered enough? Will you take the little we have left and salt it into ruin? Will you burn the food that might feed the children? Will you tear down the walls that give us shelter from the cold? The priests shift, uneasy. Some look away, their jaws tight. Others stare at him with naked hatred. But in the crowd, a tremor begins, small at first, like a ripple across a still pond. A mother clutches her child closer. A man clenches his fist. An elder nods, slow and deliberate. A voice rises, soft, uncertain. No more. Another joins, then another. A low murmur swelling into a chorus. No more. Quetzalcoatl's face twists, fury sharpening his features. Silence, he bellows, but his voice cracks against the tide rising in the square. Quetzalcoatl stands taller, his breath steady, the fire within him burning bright. He lifts his arms, not in a gesture of power, but of openness, of welcome. We will rebuild, he says, voice ringing clear. Not with blood, not with ash, but with our hands and our hearts. We will feed the hungry, shelter the weary, plant the seeds anew. The gods are not angered by our survival. They rejoice in it. The wind stirs, warm and sharp, fluttering the torn edges of the banners. For a heartbeat, the world holds still. Then the priests step forward, slow, measured, warriors at their side, spears gleaming in the morning light. A threat, coiled and quiet, waiting to strike. Quetzalcoatl meets their gaze without flinching. His heart drums in his chest, but his voice is calm as he speaks. You may try to silence me. You may strike me down. But the storm has already come. The people have already heard. And the seeds of change, they are sown. A long pause stretches between them, taut as a bowstring. Then Quetzalcoatl turns sharply, his robes swirling like smoke. His voice cuts through the air, brittle and cold. Let it be known, he says, his tone sharp with warning, that the gods watch, and the gods do not forget. The priests withdraw, their footsteps sharp against the stone, the warriors close behind, their spears casting long, thin shadows across the plaza. The people watch them go, silent, breathless, their hearts thundering in their chests. And in the stillness that follows, Quetzalcoatl feels it. A crack in the old world, a breath of something new. Not a victory, not yet, but a beginning. The feathered serpent stirs within him, curling in the depths of his soul. The earth may yet be salted, the fires may yet burn, but he will stand, and so too will those who choose to hope. The air is heavy with the scent of smoke. Not the sharp, acrid bite of battle, but the softer, cloying haze of incense. It drifts in slow curls through the temples, through the courtyards, through the narrow streets of Teotihuacan. It clings to skin and cloth, seeping into the very stones. And beneath it all, something festers. Whispers slither in the shadows. Quiet conversations behind closed doors. Glances exchanged across crowded plazas. Words spoken with measured care. Too quiet for the gods to hear, or so the whisperers hope. Quetzalcoatl feels it before he hears it. A shift in the air, a tension that prickles along the skin. Eyes that once met his with cautious hope now glance away. Voices that once greeted him with warmth now fall silent when he passes. The market women who used to offer him maize or fruit now busy themselves with their wares, avoiding his gaze. It is not anger, not yet. It is fear. Fear carefully sown, like seeds scattered in dark soil, watered by doubt, nurtured by whispered lies. The priests have not been idle. Quetzalcoatl moves through the city like a shadow, his robes whispering against the stone, his voice low and venomous. He speaks of heresy, of a man who would tear down the gods themselves. They say he would silence the drums forever, the whispers go, that he would let the sun falter and die. They say he has grown proud, too proud, that he would make himself a god. They say he is dangerous, and danger in a city built on faith and fear is a spark waiting to ignite. Quetzalcoatl knows this. He feels it in the way the warriors watch him, hands resting on the hilts of their obsidian blades, in the way the priest's eyes narrow when he speaks, in the uneasy silence that spreads like a sickness, dampening the laughter in the plazas, weighing heavy on the air. But still he walks. Through the market stalls, offering quiet words of comfort. Through the fields, helping lift stones and mend walls. Through the temples, where he speaks of a gentler offering, flowers, songs, the shaping of clay, the weaving of cloth. Some listen. Some nod, hesitant but hopeful. But others, they turn away. One evening, as the sun dips low and the city glows in the golden light, he finds himself standing before a small altar on the outskirts of the city. It is simple. No great carvings, no towering pyramids, just a flat stone, worn smooth by generations of hands, with offerings laid carefully upon it. A woman stands there, her hair streaked with silver, her hands calloused and strong. She lights a small fire, the smoke rising in a thin, wavering column. Quetzalcoatl approaches, his steps soft on the earth. "You honor the gods," he says gently. She glances at him, her eyes dark and guarded. "I honor the old ways," she replies. A pause hangs between them. The fire crackles softly. Quetzalcoatl studies her face, the lines etched deep by time, by loss, by the weight of survival. "I do not ask you to abandon them," he says quietly, "only to see that there is more than one way to honor the gods. The earth gives us beauty. Should we not give it back?" The woman looks at him for a long, measured moment. Then slowly she turns back to the fire. "I have lost 2 sons," she says softly, almost to herself. "Both given to the gods. Still, the rains come, and the floods rise. Still, the earth takes what it will. I have nothing left to give, but this." She drops a small bundle of herbs into the flames. The smoke twists upward, fragrant and bittersweet. The betrayal comes that night. Quetzalcoatl is summoned to the temple, a quiet summons, a whisper carried by a breath of wind. He enters the chamber where the high priests gather, the walls lined with flickering torches that cast long, flickering shadows. Quetzalcoatl stands at the head of the chamber, his robes dark as the night, his eyes glittering with a hard, cold light. The other priests flank him, their faces carved from stone, impassive but watchful. Quetzalcoatl feels the weight of their gaze settle on him, heavy as a mountain. He speaks first, his voice calm but firm. "You called for me." Quetzalcoatl's lips curl into something that is not quite a smile. "We did," he says. "There are concerns." A flick of the wrist, a soft gesture, and 2 warriors step forward from the shadows, their spears gleaming in the torchlight. Quetzalcoatl does not flinch. He stands tall, the firelight catching the lines of his face, the determination in his eyes. "What concerns?" he asks quietly. Quetzalcoatl's voice is smooth, almost soft, but beneath it lies steel. "Your words sow unrest. Your actions encourage rebellion. You speak of change, but what you offer is chaos. The gods demand order to Pilsen. They demand obedience. They demand sacrifice." A slow breath fills Quetzalcoatl's chest. He feels the fire within him, steady, quiet, fierce. "And yet," he says softly, "the gods do not speak through you alone." It is a small sentence, but it lands like a stone in water, sending ripples outward. Itzcoatzin's eyes flash. A thin, cold smile tugs at his lips. "You forget your place," he says. "No," Quetzalcoatl replies, his voice calm as the turning of the earth. "I remember it too well." The silence that follows is lassy, heavy, a breath held between worlds. Then Itzcoatzin speaks, each word measured, sharp. "You are no longer welcome in the temples, Topiltzin. You will leave this place by sunrise. If you return, it will be as an offering." The torches crackle, casting shifting patterns across the stone. Quetzalcoatl feels the weight of the moment settle into his bones. A quiet finality, a severing, and yet, as he turns to leave, he feels the eyes of the other priests on him, some sharp with triumph, some hollow with fear, and some, just for a flicker, filled with doubt. The fire in his chest burns steady. They may cast him out. They may try to break him, but the feathered serpent is not so easily silenced. And the storm, once stirred, does not forget. He steps out into the night, the cool air washing over him, the stars distant and bright above. Alone, but not defeated, never defeated. The dawn breaks cold and pale over Teotihuacan. A thin mist curls across the ground, softening the edges of the great pyramids, blurring the lines between stone and sky. The city lies quiet, still bruised from the storm, still trembling beneath the weight of its own fear. And in the quiet, Quetzalcoatl walks. He moves through the streets as if in a dream, the soles of his sandals dark with damp earth, the hem of his robe dragging through the mud. The people watch from behind half-closed doors, their eyes darting, their hands clutching at the small comforts of home. An earthen pot, a woven shawl, a child's hand. They do not speak, but they see, and that is enough. He walks to the edge of the city where the fields stretch out like a patchwork quilt, sodden and torn. The river glimmers in the distance, swollen but steady now, its fury spent. The air smells of wet earth, of ash, of something faintly sweet. Flowers, perhaps, or the promise of something growing again. Quetzalcoatl breathes it in deeply, filling his lungs, letting the air settle into the hollow places inside him. Behind him, the city stirs. The drums do not sound this morning. The priests are silent in their chambers, but the whisper of danger lingers, coiling through the streets, an invisible fog. He knows they will come for him. Not today, perhaps. Not while the people still remember the words he spoke in the rain, the defiance that bloomed like a stubborn flower in the mud. But soon. And so, he walks to the place where the wild grasses grow tall and the trees bend low, where the sky feels close and the earth feels wide. It is here that he finds them, those who have chosen to follow him. A small gathering, no more than a dozen. Faces young and old, eyes bright with hope or dull with exhaustion. They greet him with quiet nods, some bowing their heads, some clutching at the small tokens they carry. Woven charms, clay figures, feathers dyed in brilliant greens and blues. Xochitl is among them, her gaze steady, her presence a quiet anchor. "You came," she says simply. He nods, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. It is not joy exactly, but a kind of relief. "I could not stay," he says softly. They gather around a small fire, its smoke rising in thin threads into the brightening sky. The flames crackle low and steady, as if mirroring the quiet resolve in their hearts. Quetzalcoatl speaks, not in the voice of a priest or a ruler, but in the voice of a man who has seen the world break and still dares to hope it can be mended. He speaks of a new way, not of blood, but of breath. Not of fear, but of knowledge. Not of sacrifice, but of creation. He speaks of the gods not as hungry tyrants demanding tribute, but as forces woven into the fabric of life. Rivers, wind, maize, sun. He speaks of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, not as a figure demanding worship, but as a story. a dream, a guide for how to live. The people listen. Some nod, tears tracing quiet lines down their faces. Others sit still, eyes closed, as if holding the words gently in their hands, afraid they might slip away. It is not a large gathering, not an army, not a revolution, but it is enough, a spark. And yet, even as he speaks, Quetzalcoatl knows the storm has not passed. That night, as the moon rises full and pale over the city, they come. The priests, cloaked in shadow. The warriors, faces painted in streaks of black and red, their obsidian blades glinting like shards of night. They move through the city like smoke, silent and relentless, slipping through alleyways, climbing temple steps, spreading their net wide. And at the edge of the fields, where the fire has burned low and the voices have faded to quiet murmurs, they find Quetzalcoatl. He stands, calm and waiting, the breeze lifting the edges of his robe. His eyes meet theirs, steady and unafraid. He does not run. He does not beg. He opens his arms. Whether in surrender or in welcome, it is impossible to say. The warriors close in, and the air tightens, sharp as the edge of a blade. Xochitl cries out, reaching for him, but is pulled back by strong hands. The others scatter, vanishing into the night like leaves carried by the wind. Quetzalcoatl stands alone. The high priest approaches, his smile thin, his breath slow and deliberate. "The gods will have their justice," he says. Quetzalcoatl's voice is quiet, almost a whisper, but it carries in the stillness. "The gods will have what we give them." They bind him in woven cords, rough against his skin. They strip him of his robe, of the symbols he once wore, the feathered headdress, the beaded necklaces, the painted staff. They strip him down to the man beneath it all. And yet, as they drag him back through the streets, as they parade him like a trophy, something strange happens. The people do not shout. They do not jeer. They watch, silent. Their eyes hold no hatred, only something deeper, something that hums beneath the skin. The priests see a man broken, but the people, they see a man standing. The feathered serpent has been captured, but it has not been caged, not truly, because the story does not end with a chain. The story takes flight, and in the quiet, in the hearts of those who watched, a question stirs, soft, dangerous, and impossible to kill. What if the gods are not what we thought they were? The days pass slowly, like shadows stretching across the sunlit plazas. Teotihuacan holds its breath, a city caught in the pause between heartbeats. The drums do not sound. The priests walk in silence, their footsteps sharp against the stone. The air is heavy with the scent of smoke. Sacrifices resumed, blood flowing once more on the altars. Yet beneath it all, something lingers. A whisper in the dust, a ripple in the still water. The name of Quetzalcoatl is not spoken in the temples. It is forbidden, cast out like a stain to be scrubbed clean. The priests declare that he was a heretic, a traitor, a man who dared to defy the will of the gods. His deeds are erased from the carvings, his image chipped from the walls, his story buried beneath layers of ritual and fear. But stories are not so easily silenced. In the markets, mothers tell their children tales of the man who spoke of flowers instead of blades. In the fields, farmers whisper of the leader who worked alongside them, his hands dark with the same earth that fed their crops. And in the quiet hours, when the wind stirs the banners and the stars burn cold above, some still lift their eyes to the sky and wonder, what if the feathered serpent was right? Far from the city, in the dense forests where the air hangs heavy with moisture and the trees rise tall and tangled, a small figure moves through the undergrowth. His steps are light, careful, each footfall placed with intention. His robe is torn, his face streaked with dirt. But his eyes burn bright, sharp as obsidian. It is Quetzalcoatl. He lives. The priests had meant to kill him, to offer his life to the gods as both punishment and example. They had dragged him to the pyramid steps, bound and bloodied, the crowd watching in breathless silence. The high priest had raised the blade, obsidian gleaming in the sunlight, a sharp promise of death. But the gods, if they were watching, had other plans. A sudden gust of wind had swept through the square, tearing banners from their posts, scattering offerings like feathers across the stones. The sky had darkened, the clouds rolling in heavy and fast, and the first drops of rain had struck the earth like a drumbeat. In the chaos, as the priests struggled to hold the people, as the storm roared overhead, Quetzalcoatl had slipped from their grasp, vanished into the downpour, into the labyrinth of streets and alleys, into the wilderness beyond. Some say it was a miracle. Others say it was a trick. But all agree on one thing. The feathered serpent had flown. Now he moves through the forest like a shadow, gathering those who still believe. They come to him quietly, young men and women, elders with sharp eyes and steady hands, mothers who have lost their children to the knife, fathers who have nothing left but hope. They do not speak of revenge. They speak of rebuilding, of a world where the gods are honored with beauty, not blood, where the rains are welcomed as gifts, not feared as punishment, where the earth is tended, not torn apart. They gather in clearings beneath the wide branches of ancient trees, their fires burning low and steady. They share stories, food, songs. They weave new dreams into the fabric of the old. And always, at the center, is Quetzalcoatl. His face is leaner now, his body marked by the trials he has endured. But his voice, oh, his voice, is steady, calm, a river flowing over stones. He speaks not as a man who seeks power, but as one who has glimpsed a vision and cannot let it go. The gods are not cruel, he tells them, his words soft but fierce. They are the rain, the sun, the maize. They are the breath we draw, the songs we sing. They do not hunger for our blood. That hunger is ours. The people listen. They nod, their eyes glistening in the firelight. But in Teotihuacan, the priests grow restless. They hear the whispers, soft as the breeze, but persistent. They know the feathered serpent is not truly gone. And fear, once planted, grows like a vine, twisting, choking, seeking to crush what it cannot control. The drums begin again, louder now, faster. The sacrifices resume in greater numbers. The priests speak of omens, of curses, of the need for more blood to appease the gods. But even as they chant, they glance over their shoulders. Even as the blades fall, they cannot shake the feeling that the earth itself is listening and waiting. One night, as the moon rises full and bright, the people of Teotihuacan wake to find the walls of the temples marked. Feathers, bright green, red, and blue, tied in bundles hanging from doorways, fluttering in the breeze. Painted across the steps of the pyramid, in bold, looping strokes, are the words, "The feathered serpent flies still." Panic spreads like wildfire. The priests demand more sacrifices. The warriors patrol the streets. But the people, they whisper. They remember. They begin to dream. And far beyond the city, in the hush of the forests, Quetzalcoatl stands beneath the stars, the wind lifting his hair, the firelight catching in his eyes. He is no longer just a man. He is a symbol, a story, a question that will not be silenced. The feathered serpent has returned, and the world is watching. The sun sets slowly over the Valley of the Gods, casting long golden rays that stretch across the stones of Teotihuacan. The pyramids glow in the fading light, their edges softened by time, their stories etched deep into the earth. The drums are silent now, the plaza's empty, The fires burned low. The city rests, but its walls remember. And so do its people. For stories once spoken cannot be unspoken. They drift like seeds on the wind, settling in quiet places, waiting. They take root in the minds of the young, in the hearts of the weary, in the whispered prayers of those who long for something different. Quetzalcoatl, the Feathered Serpent, was never just a god. He was never only a man. He was both. He was the breath between worlds, the dream that dared to rise from blood and ash. He was a question. What if we could live without fear? What if the gods did not demand our suffering? And questions, once asked, are dangerous things. Quetzalcoatl walked the line between faith and defiance, between earth and sky. He rose, he fell, and in falling, he left a mark no blade could erase. The priests tried to silence him. The city tried to forget. But the feathered serpent still flies. It flies in the stories told around quiet fires, in the hands that plant seeds in the soil, hoping for a harvest, in the eyes of a child who looks up at the stars and wonders, could it be different? And so we remember, not just the man, not just the myth, but the choice. The choice to speak, to stand, to dream of a world remade, not by fear, but by hope. The choice to believe. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found something in this story that touched you, an idea, a feeling, a quiet thought, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Share your reflections in the comments below. And as you drift into sleep, may you carry with you the whisper of the feathered serpent, and the quiet knowledge that sometimes the boldest flight is the one that begins in silence. Good night.